Next on the news, 1 year ago today, the world lost Pope Francis. Now we remember the legacy of the People's Pope. Meantime, Pope Leo XIV is continuing his journey through Africa. See the young man who tried to join the Holy Father on foot. Speaking of making moves, a group of young faithful in the Diocese of Brooklyn took a walking tour through time, using church art to learn more about their parishes. Plus, a new sacred space will help you connect more with a popular saint.
A longtime devotion to Padre Pio has inspired a local restaurant owner to quite literally make a space for others. I'm Jessica Easthope. That story's coming up.
I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia, il Signore è con te. Tu sei benedetta fra le donne.
1 year later, the world still mourns the People's Pope as thousands pray the Rosary in the Basilica of St. Mary Major for Pope Francis. It was news that devastated millions of Catholics around the globe. Pope Francis returned to the Lord on April 21st, 2025. And while many are excited to see how Pope Leo XIV will shape the Catholic Church, others today are still thinking about the man who was the son of Italian immigrants, born Jorge Bergoglio in Buenos Aires in 1936, who would go on to change the world as Pope Francis. Thousands still line up outside the Basilica of St. Mary Major, hoping to pay their respects to the People's Pope.
Buonasera.
Because from the start of his pontificate in 2013, the first Holy Father of the Americas established himself as a shepherd, especially for the marginalized. He was the first successor of St. Peter to take the name Francis, after St. Francis of Assisi, dubbed the Poor Man of Assisi. Caring for those living on the peripheries became the backbone of Pope Francis's pontificate. His advocacy on behalf of migrants and refugees evident through dozens of trips. One of his first apostolic journeys in 2013 was to the Italian island of Lampedusa to show his solidarity with migrants.
Benvenuto! Papa Francesco! Benvenuto!
Papa Francesco! One of his last was to Southeast Asia, where he promoted peace through interreligious dialogue. Pope Francis often spoke out against the war in Ukraine, and every night since the Israel-Hamas war began, he would call the only Catholic church in Gaza to remind them they are not forgotten.
Buonasera, Santo Padre. Buonasera, come stai?
The Holy Father was an advocate for the environment. In 2015, he published his encyclical Laudato Si. The papal paper didn't just focus on technical solutions to climate change. Rather, the Pope encouraged Christians to find changes in their everyday lives. Since its creation, Laudato Si has inspired programs to fight climate change around the world. His 2019 Synod of Bishops on the Amazon was largely focused on environmental issues and the need to protect the Amazon rainforest. Synodality was a key concept of his papacy.
Voglio così riconoscere il valore del cammino sinodale compiuto, che tramite questo documento consegno al santo popolo fedele di Dio.
In 2024, Pope Francis closed the Synod of Bishops on Synodality, a 4-year process to make the global church a more open, welcoming, and inclusive place, empowering lay people, including young Catholics, and ensuring that women have a greater role in the church by giving them the right to vote at the Synod. He made history in January of 2025 by appointing the first woman as the head of a Vatican department. And Pope Francis was perhaps the most inclusive pontiff toward the LGBT community. But while he approved letting Catholic priests bless same-sex couples, he drew the line when it came to marriage.
Chiaro su questo, no? Il matrimonio è un sacramento. Matrimonio è un sacramento.
Mere months after being elected, the Pope opened a door to LGBT Catholics when responding to a reporter's question on the papal plane.
Se una persona è gay e cerca il Signore e ha buona volontà, ma chi sono io per giudicarla?
As for heterosexual couples who divorce and then remarry, in 2015, Pope Francis said they were still welcome in the church.
Queste persone non sono affatto scomunicate, e non vanno assolutamente trattate come tali. Esse fanno sempre parte della Chiesa.
On the topic of abortion, the Pope always took a strong stance against it. Here he is in 2018, equating terminating a pregnancy to hiring a hitman.
È giusto affittare un sicario per risolvere un problema? Non si può, non è giusto fare fuori un essere umano, benché piccolo, per risolvere un problema. È come affittare un sicario per risolvere un problema.
In 2019, Pope Francis called on dioceses worldwide to set up a system for people to report clerical sex abuse, and he issued apologies for it.
Pedimos perdón. We ask for forgiveness.
The Holy Father also apologized for the abuse suffered by Indigenous children in Canada at Catholic-run residential schools.
En el drama sufrido por tantos de ustedes, por sus
I
familias,
humbly beg forgiveness for the evil committed by so many Christians against the indigenous peoples.
Pope Francis also liked to celebrate, often inviting various circus acts to perform at the Vatican. But his last celebration is one he won't see to its end. In December of 2024, Pope Francis opened the Holy Doors at St. Peter's Basilica to begin the Jubilee of Hope.
Il Giubileo è per convertirsi, perché il nostro cuore divenga più grande, più generoso, più figlio di Dio.
The Vatican held its own tribute to Pope Francis in honor of the one-year anniversary of his death. Thousands gathering today at the Basilica of St. Mary Major to remember the people's Pope.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia, il Signore è con te.
The recitation of the Rosary inside the Pauline Chapel, reminiscent of the dozens of times the late pontiff would pray there before his many international trips. Afterwards, a commemorative plaque marked the spot saying, Francis, Supreme Pontiff, who paused 126 times in devout prayer at the feet of the Salus Populi Romani, according to his will, rests in this papal basilica. Faithful then celebrated a Mass where a special message from Pope Leo XIV was read. The Holy Father also remembered his predecessor ahead of the final leg of his journey throughout Africa, the Pope landing in Equatorial Guinea on Tuesday. The country's more than 70% Catholic population greeted the pontiff as he landed. Pope Leo was also received at the country's presidential palace, where he spoke to leaders and the diplomatic corps. On the papal plane heading there, the pontiff remembered the legacy of his predecessor.
Tante volte quello che ha fatto, vivendo veramente la vicinanza ai più poveri, a quelli più piccoli, ai malati, ai bambini, agli anziani. Ha lasciato tanto nella Chiesa con la sua testimonianza e la sua parola.
Pope Leo called the work being carried out by the Church in Equatorial Guinea innovative, creative, and dynamic. Over the weekend, while visiting Cameroon, the Holy Father celebrated Mass with more than 200,000 faithful. The liturgy outside the airport was a festive conclusion to the Holy Father's second leg of his apostolic journey. During the Mass, various cultures of the nation were celebrated, and the Pope encouraged everyone to persevere in the peace of Christ. After touching down in Angola on Sunday, April 19th, Pope Leo visited a care home for the elderly run by the government. The Holy Father was welcomed with singing and dancing by some of the facility's 62 residents, and Pope Leo prayed for the elderly there, entrusting them to the care of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Love for the first U.S. Pope can be felt at every stop of his African trip, but especially touching moment that has garnered attention online happened while he was in the capital of Angola. While waving to the crowd on his Pope-mobile, a young boy ran alongside and, as you can see, was able to keep up with Pope Leo for quite a few feet. Fast runner there. For continuing coverage of the Pope's journey throughout Africa, be sure to follow us online at Catholic News Updates. Take out your phones right now and scan this QR code to see it all. Plus, breaking stories, saint feast days, historical look-backs, and non-stop inspiration straight to your feed. So what are you waiting for? If you haven't scanned it yet, do it now. Also, over the weekend, young adults from across the Diocese of Brooklyn took a walking tour to better get to know their parishes.
How do you guys feel when you just walk in? Any thoughts? Yes.
Starting at the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph in Prospect Heights, the diocese's youth and young adult ministry took the young faithful on a journey through time, using art to highlight the history of the parishes. After touring the more than 100-year-old Brooklyn Cathedral, they then made their way to St. Francis of Assisi, St. Blaise Parish in Prospect Lefferts Gardens to celebrate a Mass in honor of the ongoing Franciscan Jubilee, which marks the 800th anniversary of the death of St. Francis. Speaking of popular saints, one man is crediting Padre Pio for the blessings in his life, and now the restaurant owner is paying that devotion forward, offering a sacred space so that others can experience the Italian saint's intercession. Jessica Easthope has more from Little Neck.
How you doing? How many? 4 people?
4 parties going on.
Joe Operisano knows what success feels like. His restaurant kitchen at Il Bacco in Little Neck runs like a well-oiled machine. And in the dining room, mouths are full and people are happy.
Happy birthday to all of you.
But what's in the basement matters more than all of it.
I'm gonna put you where everybody's gonna see you. It changed my life tremendously.
15 years ago, when Joe opened Il Bacco 2 doors down from its original location, he was given a candle with Padre Pio on it.
They gave me all the permits to open and everything, and I truly believe that the reason I was successful in doing what I did because of Padre Pio, and I point out to the candle which he was lighting up right on top of the wall.
A bigger and better Il Bacco took off, as did Joe's devotion. Everything was going right until something went terribly wrong.
As I'm landing in the water, because it was a water plane, a boat jumped in front of me. And as I'm going away from the boat, the floats hit the dock.
16 broken ribs, a broken back, broken legs, 28 surgeries, and the loss of a friend. Joe's accident should have been the end.
And I truly believe that Padre Pio helped me be here today. I have things left to do, in life, this world.
Joe left the hospital after 4 months and immediately began work on this. A spiritual place dedicated to Padre Pio around the block from his restaurant on Little Neck Parkway. That life-size bronze statue that sits in the basement of Il Bacco was destined for a simple but beautiful space.
The world is divided right now, so I want to be everybody together, to believe in something.
Joe plans to open the park dedicated to Padre Pio on April 26th. A culmination of his devotion and what he hopes is the start of many others.
The reason I'm doing this is because I want to spread the word. I'm still alive talking to you, and this is a payback, and that's what I'm doing it for.
In Little Neck, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Wow, what a story. Finally, Bishop Robert Brennan recently celebrated a parish's milestone anniversary on the feast of their patron. The Brooklyn Shepherd helping the faithful of the Shrine Church of St. Bernadette celebrate 90 years of bringing the faith to the people of Diker Heights. It's a far cry from the church's humble beginnings. When it was established around 1936, masses were held at a nearby Knights of Columbus auditorium hall and later a rented storefront. The church that still stands there today on 13th Avenue was built across the street from that storefront. And at the April 16th Mass, parishioners celebrated their enduring faith and the feast of their patron, St. Bernadette. That is this Currents News Update. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. We leave you with some final images remembering the pontificate of the People's Pope. Hope to see you again next time.